Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go after the lefts, we go after the rights, we go after the middle and independents, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun. All right, guys. Today's date, September 7th, 2022, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we are a news channel. Sometimes words do fly. At the same time, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. All right, so what do we have for the middle of the week? Well, not really I won't say not really a lot, because we always have a lot of news, we expect. But some confusing news. I'll start out with this. Start with this one right here. That for simple fact of the matter, Texas Department of Public Safety suspends 2 officers with pay during internal review of Uvalde response. Yes, unfortunately, the Uvalde response is still being looked into. As we did report last week, that all officers, short of the chief of police that was given his walking papers, all officers that were there during that time of waiting nearly 70 minutes to respond to an active shooter were allowed to go back and protect and serve. However, as of today, 2 of those officers with that group have now been put under suspension without pay regarding an internal review of law enforcement's actions that day. That'll be looked over by the Texas DPS Inspector General. The only thing I can sit there and say of this situation is I don't understand. I mean, yes, it was good that the chief of police, who was also the commander on site that day, was given his walking papers. There was literally no excuse for the simple fact of the matter is that they should have breached when it was a single lone armed gunman that they waited 70 minutes to breach while he killed young children. Yes, all the way should have been fired. And matter of fact, his pension should have been taken away from him just because he failed in his duties as chief of police. I also sat there and said last week that all those officers under his command should also no longer be allowed to protect and serve. But yet the same school commission in Texas and Uvalde allows them to serve. And now 2 of those said officers are now being put under the subject of investigation. All I can say is at this point, the parents have to be angry is one thing, but it's almost as if it's a never-ending nightmare because all they want is accountability. When I've been saying it best, everyone from the school down has some responsibility. I mean, everyone from the school down has responsibility, but initially the fault lies with law enforcement. Had law enforcement reacted quicker, who knows how many lives could have been saved. But it's almost as if it says one report, you say all officers are allowed to go back and protect and serve once school starts back up. Okay. Now you're saying that 2 of those officers out of that group are now under internal investigation. But if you're reviewing, I guess, said evidence, I guess the video that has been released beforehand that is showing all officers, wouldn't all officers that were there on site that were on the recording also be suspended without pay as well? It's just weird that it only comes down to 2 of them, which I can only think that the matter is that maybe out of those 2, that this is going to lead to something else. I would say I've been saying before, everybody that was on site as law enforcement officer that day failed, in my opinion, should be given their walking papers. But maybe that's the beginning of it. Maybe there's something on there that they're not showing, or maybe there's something else that only these 2 are involved in. I just feel like that's a little bit of a murky water that one week you say all officers can come back, the next week 2 officers suspended with pay pending an internal investigation. It just looks suspect. That's all I'm saying. When all the parents of those Uvalde children that were murdered, those parents simply want accountability. They do want to be able to bury their loved ones and to grieve and to really get their lives back on track. But they want accountability, and it just seems that accountability is coming very, very slowly for I mean, I could speculate and say, well, it's because, law enforcement gets better protection than citizens do. I can argue that all day. But again, it's kind of hard to dismay that fact when 1 week all officers are allowed to come back. The next week, two of those said officers are now suspended again. It just, in the words of Among Us, it seems a little sus. That's all I'm saying. But there's actually some good news. I will say this, that's going to be coming from the January 6th Commission, not because it happened because of the commission, because of the fact that, well, this individual there, and I said this before, that during that January 6th Commission, where you had a whole bunch of so-called patriots act like domestic terrorists, which tried to do an insurrection because they tried to stop an electoral government process, which might as well be up there put up with treason, but I could argue that all day. Well, anyway, the reason why I'm trying to get to this is that one individual who was a New Mexico judge has been removed from office because of his involvement with the insurrection. That's actually the individual right there. You'll pretty much know him from the guy that's down here.
This hour, the jailed leader of the Cowboys for Trump movement, Cody Griffin, went before a federal judge on charges related to the Capitol Hill riot in January. Griffin, who is a New Mexico County commissioner, was held for 2 weeks in solitary isolation because he refused to take a COVID test. Joining me now, NBC News Justice.
So yes, that individual that you saw right there is no longer in office. Why? Because the simple fact of the matter is he was basically not fulfilling his duties. He did exactly what the 14th Amendment is supposed to do. For all those that don't know, let me give a refresher course what the 14th Amendment does. It bars officials who have engaged in insurrection or rebellion from holding a public office. You're probably wondering where I'm going with this right now, because he was not the only public official that was involved in this. There were several
executive with Black Lives.
Quiet you. There were several individuals that were involved. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Laura Bobbitt, almost every conservative darling you can think of that all supported this rebellion. Now, granted, they may have not been there on the day thereof, but they were there by association. And again, even Josh Hawley, he's a track star. The same guy that was hyping up the crowd is the same guy that was running from said crowd in January 6th election. Again, that's like, I could argue that the 14th Amendment should be applied to all of them, especially Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is the epitome of someone who has done nothing but talk and get paid for it as a representative. She's not on any congressional hearings, commissions, or anything of that nature. Marjorie Taylor Greene is literally the poster child for getting paid for talking and doing nothing, and still complaining about it, and still getting her PPP loans forgiven. But that's another individual who, in my opinion, should also be held to the 14th Amendment. Although they was tried before in office, but somehow in her state of Georgia, she managed to get off scot-free. There's just no words for that. There really isn't. But at least one person is no longer in office because they decided to support the rebellion, and because they're in public office, they should be removed, as they should be. No complaints there. However, what's weird though in the news also is Black Lives Matter. It was actually the video that was playing a little bit earlier. Black Lives Matter, at least one of the executives, is now in the news for basically siphoning money from said organization.
Lives Matter is accused of siphoning more than $10 million from donors. The claim was made in a court filing by the grassroots arm of the organization. Shalomaya Bowers is named in the suit along with their consulting firm. Bowers has denied the claims, calling the accusations harmful, divisive, and false.
Now, here's the problem. And again, I am in fully support of Black Lives Matter. I believe it's a great movement. I believe that there's a lot that can be done there. A lot of good can come in the organization. No different from the NAACP or the many multiple organizations out there that assist with minorities and people of color. I truly, truly do believe that. Even more so that there was an internal investigation. Try it again. The Internal Investigation at Black Lives Matter, which actually led to this accusation of Mr. Bowers, who has been so-called allegedly been siphoning money. The problem with this, and I say this all the time, is that you have those at Fox News and conservative media that will do nothing more than say that Black Lives Matter is everything short, I say short, of a propaganda pre-terrorist group. They always say, well, Black Lives Matter has all this money, but nobody questions where the money goes. Well, Black Lives Matter this, and then, what are they really for? Black Lives Matter is for defunding the police. You hear it all the time on conservative media. You do. You hear it all the time on conservative media. Do you think for 1 second that I guarantee if I were to go to foxnews.com right now, you don't think that's going to be one of their top stories? Well, we should be looking into Black Lives Matter. What are they really doing with the money? What are they really doing with what are they really doing with this? Are they really helping Black people? In the same sense that Fox News helps Black people? Absolutely nothing. I mean, it's amazing to me that a propaganda machine like Fox News will run with that. But at the same time, I have to give Black Lives Matter its internal investigations accountability, because if there is a person who is basically using funds for themselves, when the movement is supposed to be for helping out Black people and other people of color and minorities and women, then yes, it should be held accountable. Because you know why? It's amazing with all the other organizations out there, you don't see them getting the same scrutiny as Black Lives Matter does. But I wonder why. Because the moment we start saying Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, those came out. But you haven't heard from them since, because the other ones are bullshit. That's all I'm saying. But again, we'll follow that story as it comes along. Another story I wanted to get into was, again, I keep saying this, that in this very, as many times they keep on saying that jobs are available, that there are a lot of crappy ones, a lot of crappy paying ones. And I keep saying this, it's only going to get worse as employers realize that if they're not going to be paying better to where people can survive, and I do say survive, not thrive, survive, because it is amazing in 2022, you still find jobs that are paying $40,000 to $45,000. A $45,000 salary in America does not get you even a one-person bedroom. Doesn't even get you a one-bedroom apartment. $45,000 a year. $45,000 a year, where your rent or mortgage takes up more than almost 70% of your paycheck. Think about that for a second. The fact that employers still believe that paying $44,000 or $45,000 at the low end instead of paying more than market rate. Because I keep saying this entire time, this is the reason why Biden even though Biden may be touting his victories at the time, there's still a couple of things he fell short on, because minimum wage should have been increased. I cannot stress that how long it's been since there's been a minimum wage increase, because profits for companies, even in a pandemic era, have soared. Billions have soared, not just oil companies, but energy companies, corporations that sell electronics, consumership with among them has went up, because we have to buy more, because we're getting less. Because again, with this whole thing of supplies, because everybody does, because it's kind of interesting now that I think about it, that, not to go on a tangent, nobody, very few people recall the toilet paper incident that was 4 or 5 months ago, where everybody was so worried that we're gonna run out. What are you gonna do? We run out of toilet paper, and of course, classic American fashion, everybody bum rushed the stores, bought all the toilet paper that they could, and stores were out. Same with gas. There's gonna be a gas shortage. Go ahead and fill up your tank now. What do individuals do? Go fill up their gas, bum rush gas stations, because had everybody acted normally, everything would have worked out. So what am I getting to about the job field? Well, again, as school starts, we did report last week that already schools in Ohio were having a shortage because teachers are going on strike. You have schools in the South that can't fill vacancies. The schools had to go to a four day a week school week, because you don't have enough teachers. At the same time, here in Tennessee, they are lowering the standards for you to actually be a teacher on campus. Why? Because all educators are leaving. And at this moment, Seattle is now joining that very same teacher strike that a lot of parents and kids are now seeing. And the thing about it is, it's a very simple solution on solving this problem. Pay the teachers.
Country are back in the classroom, but children in Seattle are staying home for their first day of school today, with teachers there expected to go on strike. The Seattle Education Association and school board have been negotiating for months now over demands that the union has made. They say to address teacher burnout. ABC's Mona Kozar-Abdi joins me live now from Seattle with more on this. Mona, they've been going back and forth for a while now. So what's the latest on these negotiations?
Diane, they've been going back and forth for months. As of right now, the Seattle Education Association, which represents about 6,000 teachers in the district, and the school board are still in active negotiations. There was hope this morning that they may be able to strike a last-minute deal and avoid teachers hitting the picket line, but it seems that that hasn't come to fruition and that teachers are about to start that strike that they voted. About 95% of union members who voted yesterday approved that strike, and it is set to start in about 15 minutes. Now, as part of the school district's efforts to try to reach a deal, they did hire a legal mediator. So we will have to see how soon that will be able to work and both sides can reach a deal.
Now, what exactly are the teachers asking for here?
Well, the teachers say that these last couple of years have been very challenging, not just for them, but for the students as well. They say they are burnt out. And so they are asking, in addition to a number of things, for a pay increase. They say they want a cap, policies for a cap on employees' workloads. They also want to be able to take their personal days when they want to and not have restrictions on that. They also say what's important to them is having staffing ratios for special needs and multilingual kids. So again, they are asking for a number of things, but those seem to be some of the sticking points, Diane.
So how long could this go on, and what are parents doing in the meantime?
That is a good question. Again, as I mentioned, both sides said they were hoping for a last-minute deal. Both sides say they do share a common goal to get kids back into the classroom, and so they are still in active negotiations. But as for parents, the school district is working with them. You know that a lot of parents rely on schools for childcare needs. Some students rely on the free lunches that they get at these schools. And so even though today was supposed to be the day that tens of thousands of students were supposed to go back into the schools in Seattle, or Washington's largest school district, they do say that the school district is working with parents on, for example, providing free lunch for a set amount of time. Dan.
Mona Kozar-Abdi in Seattle.
And it's amazing. It's amazing how many times you hear the same thing. Whenever it comes to teachers and teacher strikes, what do you always hear? It's very simple. What do teachers want? They want, number one, pay increase. Why is that so hard to understand? Teachers want a pay increase. No problem. Teachers want a more easier workload, a better ratio of student to kids, especially with kids with special needs. Again, should be doable. And on top of that, personal days. They should be able to use the personal days without restriction or without having to jump through so many hoops. I've been down that route. You work in a call center, try putting in your personal days in a call center. It's an interesting process, I'll put it that way. But I'm not knocking teachers. Again, I have a special place in my heart for educators. But the simple fact of the matter is, educators have been saying, and this is not a new thing, educators have been saying for decades, they're not getting paid enough. Whatever federal assistance they're getting is getting dwindled, getting taken away from them. Why? Because in the grand scheme of things about America's budget, where they put their resources, education has always, right along with energy, transportation, infrastructure, things of that nature, have always been dwindled. They keep on saying to energy, to education, to infrastructure, hey, you guys are going to have to tighten up your belts a little bit. You're going to tighten up your budgets. You got to tighten up. Every year, tightening. Defense, get what you want, defense. You can have whatever you want. Blank check. Defend our freedom or our oil, depending on how you look at it. I've been saying this. I'll never stop saying it. If our educational budget in the United States was given the same blank check as the U.S. as the Pentagon, the U.S. Department of Defense has a blank check. The U.S. Department of Defense has a blank check. Every year, their budget increases, yet soldiers are still not getting paid. Well, they should be getting paid anyway. I mean, yeah, they may have got a few pay increases here and there, but soldiers are still not getting paid what they should be getting paid. Veterans that actually leave the service are not getting the medical care that they should be getting. They're restricted to the VA. They're restricted to whatever crappy thing they can get a hold of, and yet they still wonder why the suicide rate among veterans is regularly high. The point I'm making out of all this is, going back to teachers, if you gave the Department of Education the same blank check that we give the Department of Defense, you would see more educated individuals and less wars. Because war is profitable. What they realize is education is only profitable if you're a bank trying to give student loans. That's the truth. And I hate to say it, that they look at it in ways of profit. They don't look at it in ways of investing in our future, and our future generations are, making sure they're properly educated or making sure that they're going to be productive citizens of society. They don't see that. They see profit. There's profit in war. That's the truth. There's profit in war. There's profit in arming soldiers, making weapons, things of that nature. There's profit in that. But it's amazing to me that for teachers who have the utmost responsibility of teaching our next generation, you think we should be arming them the same way we arm our soldiers to fight on Ukraine's behalf. You think we should be arming them. You think we should be giving teachers tax breaks. You think we should be held. We think the way we handle teachers, educators. If you want to be an educator, you think we should make the path easier for you, not stressful. Because it's amazing. We did the same thing for nursing. We're still doing the same thing for nursing. If you ever wanted to be a nurse, this time right now is perfect. Why? Nurses are getting burnt out by the dozen. Travel nurses are making a mint. At the same time, look at every hospital system in America. They'll all say the same thing. We need more nurses. And nursing schools will damn near pay you to go. You could probably walk out of nursing school with zero debt and be working from Jump Street. But it's amazing that it took a pandemic to do something that should have happened a long time ago. With teachers, it's going to be the same way. I don't know what it's going to take, because I'm looking at Biden on this one. This is where Biden needs to come through, because it's amazing. He came through for Ukraine. He's still coming through for Ukraine. He didn't come through for he may have given us student debt, and he may have hung on to that $10,000 number, because that's all he could say he could do. Because let's be honest, $10,000 was safe. Was safe. Not difficult, not unattainable. That $10,000 debt relief was safe, because he knew he could sell $10,000 to centrist and moderate Democrats. That's the number he knew he could sell, because for some odd reason, in a lot of people's worlds, they still think that loans can be paid off, even with low wages and everything going up on your paycheck now. But with teachers, it's simple. Give them what they want. If you give them what they want, if you make it easier for teachers to become educators, if you honestly invested in education, we wouldn't have this problem. You want to know why? What company out there has problems if its employees are being paid well? Think about that for a second. If you are being well compensated for your job, do you really have complaints? I'm just saying. Educators the same way. Give them what they want, or run the risk of having the same thing that a lot of schools are going through right now. Substitute teachers are trying to teach. Some people are going back to remote learning and 4-day school weeks. Or you can do the alternative, because again, with the pandemic still going on, and school right now is kind of a question in some states, a lot of parents have actually switched to homeschool. And even though I always said that homeschool would not be the path I would go in the past, not for my future children, but after listening to this, I really can't blame them.
The country are turning to homeschooling as an alternative to traditional schools. According to the Census Bureau's Household Pulse survey, American households with school-age children who reported homeschooling increased from 5.4% in April 2020 to 11.1% in October of that same year. The spike has been even higher for Black families, rising from 3.3% in spring of 2020 to 16.1% that fall. Janaea Otey started homeschooling her children long before the pandemic disrupted in-person learning, and she joins me now with her son Caleb, along with professor of elementary education at the University of Georgia and author of Exploring Single Black Mothers' Resistance Through Homeschooling, Cheryl Field Smith. Thank you all for being here today. Such an important topic. And Janaea, I want to start with you. What made you decide to homeschool your children, and how do you feel that's going?
Well, we made the decision to homeschool our children because we wanted them to be able to excel and progress. So we wanted them to be able to, if they grasp a concept quickly or a subject matter, we wanted to be able to move them on and build upon those things and not stay into one subject at a time. We also wanted to provide a safe environment for our children, to provide a safe, engaging, healthy environment for our children. And we thought that homeschooling would allow us to do that. And also, it's important to be able to slow down when you need to and just to take more time on particular subjects or topics with your children.
So, Caleb, what has homeschooling been like for you? What do you think maybe other kids don't understand if they're not living it?
So I would say for me, a lot of people think like homeschoolers are antisocial or kind of stupid a little bit, but I don't think that's true. I mean, through homeschooling, my mom had a co-op with a lot of other moms, so I got to meet a lot of really cool kids that are still my friends today, and a lot of them are very smart.
Now, Cheryl, homeschooling has grown across all groups in the wake of the pandemic, but especially among Black families. Now, one of the fastest growing demographics in homeschooling. As someone who spent years studying Black families who homeschool their children, what do you make of that rise?
Well, there's quite a few things happening. I think certainly the pandemic made it rise much more quickly than it had been. But part of it is what's going on in schools today, where we have a focus on tests and standards more so than children sometimes. The curriculum gets narrowed. And teachers, you just had the piece on the constraints that are on teachers. In some districts today, I think people would be surprised to know that teachers are told what to teach, when to teach, and how to teach it. And that doesn't always align with the students in the classroom. And so exactly what this mom is saying, if your kids are able to do more, it seems like there's less space in the classroom for kids to be able to get advanced instruction. I heard that a lot from families. There's also very oppressive policies and practices in schools. We want kids to sit still and be quiet, and they're not going to do that. And so discipline disproportionality has been a huge issue that just seems to continue to grow, particularly in the southern states, where we have children of color, Black children, brown children are disciplined at a much higher rate than their other counterparts, even though they're doing the same things. And so those are the kinds of things, if you have your child labeled a troublemaker, to be able to escape that kind of destructive labeling of our children, that's what homeschooling provides.
And I know that Caleb is just 16, and as I see here, just started at Faulkner University. So, Janaea, it sounds like you're doing great. Caleb, it sounds like you're doing great. So thank you all so much for coming on today and sharing your...
Okay. And like I said, I used to be, and I say used to be, I'll admit it. Whenever someone said homeschooling, I'm like, my mind went to the Laura Ingalls Wilder, house on the prairie, your mom is teaching you and you're not getting enough social skills. And I'll be the first person to admit I was against it because I looked at it from a social aspect. It's like, for me, school is not just about learning. It's taking social cues, it's interacting with other kids. It's actually building up your social profile, if you will, and how you react with the world. That was before the internet blew up. Now I understand. Now I don't blame parents. I don't blame parents who have the time, the means, and the opportunity that sit there and say, you know what, I'm going to homeschool my child. I'm going to, in my opinion, as long as you are educating the proper way. What I mean by that is you are preparing them for the world. That's my whole thing. Education is not just about learning how to read, write, and do math. You want to be able to teach them to sit there and be critical thinkers, because that's what happens in schools when Common Core and they start changing the education for the worse, not for the better. That everything becomes standardized testing, and that if a child doesn't pass this, then it's a mark on the teacher. And the fact that we kind of don't really hold the parents accountable, and for the longest time they didn't. That schools, I mean, not only did parents, but certain school officials thought that educators had to be all this. You had to be the parent, you had to teach them, you had to, help them grow up and things of that nature. You put that all on the teacher, and there was very little parental accountability. So now, in this day and age where education is not as solid as it used to be, I don't blame parents for taking the time out and saying, you know what, I'm going to teach my child. I'm going to take it upon myself to educate them and go from there. Because there's a lot of kids who went on to college and other ran businesses and were able to graduate with no issue. Because for all those that don't know, when you're homeschooled, you actually have to go pass you get person qualification test to basically get your equivalent to a high school diploma. For all those that don't know. But again, it's that whole thing of just, especially in the South, minorities, and I've been saying this all the time, this goes to the whole thing of the disproportion of educational and financial opportunities between minorities and the Mayo. I have been saying that. And it's always come down to the fact that we are always on the short end of the stick, and that we would do more or less. And again, but especially for Black people, historically, we've always been homeschooled. It wasn't up until figurines like Mary Lee Bethune, who actually did Bethune School, which eventually became Bethune-Cookman College. It wasn't for the fact that until those educators came along, a lot of minorities families were homeschooled, because at the time we were still dealing with segregation. Completely understand the fact that even in this day and age of 2022, that a lot of parents are sitting there saying, well, with COVID and the fact that teachers may not always be there and school shootings and things of that nature, I cannot blame parents for wanting to consider homeschooling and going from there. I cannot. The only hope I have, because I still believe in the fact of, even though my faith in public education is waning for obvious reasons, and the fact that I still, if it was up to me, I would still put my children in academies and things of that nature. But I will say this: I'm not knocking homeschools anymore, because homeschooling has to be an option in this day and age. And if the parent or parents are willing to do it, then in my case, kudos to you guys, because you guys do deserve it. But I do know one thing: a lot of parents have understood what teachers go through, and they had to get humbled just a little bit. But moving right along, guys, we do want to cover Jackson, Mississippi, because there is some good news. Some water pressure has been restored, but as for the overall situation, still needs some work.
Boil water notice remains in effect in Jackson, Mississippi, despite water pressure being restored to most buildings in the area. Officials say the water is still not safe to drink. Heavy rain and flooding in late August severely damaged the city's water system. Craig Fugate is the former administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. He joins me now to discuss the ongoing water problems in Jackson. Craig, thanks for being here. So what does restored water pressure signify right now?
It basically means you can flush your toilets and you have water for firefighting, but they're still under boiled water, so you can't use it for any human consumption. And that means you're still doing bottled water, and that's going to continue until they're able to get that water treated, tested, and make sure it's safe to drink.
Still, I know being able to flush toilets is the most essential thing, and being able to fight fires. So that is progress. But let's talk about the process of restoring safe drinking water to residents. Are you surprised that the current head of FEMA says that there is no timeline set for it?
Not really. Again, you got to go back to what caused the problems. The fact we know that before the flood, there was ongoing problems with this plant. They had boiled water orders before that. So it's two things. One is the immediate getting pressure back up, treating this water. And then what are the longer term requirements to keep the system where it's providing safe, potable drinking water?
So for 6 weeks, Craig, people in Jackson haven't been able to drink their water. How can officials get support to take preventative measures instead of waiting until a crisis like this is already so far underway to take action?
Well, this is a challenge with a nation's aging infrastructure, quite frankly, built for the last 100 years, that's failing in extreme weather events, as we're seeing as climate impacts are occurring today, right now. We saw this in Nashville in 2010 where their water treatment plant was flooded. We saw this in Columbia, South Carolina in 2015 when they almost lost their system to a major flood. And across the nation where we have these old water systems built on rivers as the primary source of drinking water, I think we need to do a national assessment because I think there are a lot more Jackson, Mississippis out there than people realize.
I think that that's an essential point to underscore, that it's happening in Jackson right now, but that the underlying problems exist in cities across the country. Given your experience as the former administrator of FEMA, how does this disaster in Jackson compare to other disasters that you've been part of?
Well, it's very similar to situation we sound like in Flint, Michigan, where we had a contaminated water system and we had to go, and that was a very extensive response for FEMA supporting the state and Health and Human Services. So this is, again, as we see these systems failing, not only do we have it from flooding, you're actually seeing communities talking about losing their systems during droughts because they just don't have enough water. Unfortunately, FEMA is a emergency response. They're not designed to permanently repair and address these types of problems. So you're going to see FEMA get involved, I think, more and more on these infrastructure failures. But ultimately, as part of the administration's Build Back Better, part of the infrastructure investments, we really got to think hard about existing critical infrastructures our communities depend upon and start making sure that we're building systems that are resilient to these various impacts of climate change, both the drought.
So, long story short, guys, yes, the water pressure has been restored. However, it is still under a boil notice. Now, what's interesting about that former comptroller and what he said was the fact that these systems are heavily outdated, completely outdated. And this is the part where Biden with the infrastructure bill comes into place. Bridges, roads, pipes, wiring, copper tubing, all of that should have been replaced. And I have been saying that, especially in the South, if you think about it, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Texas, all of that to me is a big example of a major overhaul in our water systems that needs to be replaced. Because if you think about it, our water systems haven't changed since what, the 1940s, 50s? Sure, pipes may have been replaced here and there, but as far as the overall system, it's never been overhauled. It's never been updated. So again, if you think about it, if Jackson, Mississippi can easily go down from flooding, and even here in Middle Tennessee, Nashville got flooded to the point to where its water treatment systems, locations, all were shut down but one. And Nashville got put under boil notice. Nashville got put under, well, reduce the water intake so that way we don't want to overhaul our plant, our single working plant. Think about that for a second. That's the reason why we have infrastructure put in place. That's the reason why the bill was put forward, to make sure this can be happening. But to think, that was just Jackson, Mississippi, one of the major cities in Mississippi. Do you want to know what happens if it happens in a bigger, you want to know what would happen if it happens in a bigger area? It gets worse. It gets so much worse. Even more so that, just as the man said, Jackson, Mississippi will not be the only place that has this issue. You know who else has it? Baltimore. Baltimore currently right now has detected E. coli in its water supply. It is now under a boil notice. Now, again, this was day before yesterday on September 6th. However, they, as of the checking of this article, they are still under a boiling water advisory, just because samples have shown that E. coli was discovered. This is the reason why I keep saying, guys, so freaking much. There is a reason why we have to make sure that these water systems, along with bridges, roads, dams, everything else, must be inspected and updated or upgraded. because we are going to run into more problems as climate change and sea levels and things of that nature. As all of those are changing, it is exposing the cracks. America is literally one leaky pipe away from basically being an ecological disaster, because we all need running water. We all need drinking water. We all need these things in order to survive because we've become too accustomed to them. So needless to say, the only way this changes is if the officials in place actually do something, especially Governor Tate of Mississippi, because he was too busy trying to get abortion passed to realize that one of his cities was going to be without water. But, he had a water tank outside his mansion, so he's okay. We're right along, guys. I did want to cover this story because the one thing about Donald Trump that he does well, he will use the law and lawyers and courts and litigation to drag out everything as much as humanly possible before we get to the end. His so-called quote-unquote, as he believes it, raid on Mar-a-Lago is honestly it's no different. It's no different concerning the fact that as about to happen, as we're about to go into the next story, guys, keeping this in mind. This is Trump. There's no way this can be made up.
Former President Trump and the Justice Department over those classified documents.
A federal judge in Florida has granted Trump's request for a third-party arbiter known as a special master. That person will review the sensitive materials seized from the former president's Mar-a-Lago estate. Once appointed, the special master will screen for any documents protected by either attorney-client or executive privilege. It's a major setback to the Justice Department, temporarily blocking parts of its criminal investigation. We are covering it this morning with NBC News Justice correspondent Ryan Riley and legal analyst Danny Ceballos. Good morning to both of you. Ryan, we'll start with you. So in that ruling, the judge, Aileen Cannon, a Trump appointee, talked about the unprecedented nature of this search. She wrote that as a former president, any indictment that relied on materials that should have been returned would result in, quote, reputational harm of a decidedly different order of magnitude. What more can you tell us about how the judge came to this decision?
This is a pretty unprecedented decision because I think that, had her order been limited to just questions of attorney-client privilege, the Justice Department could have lived with it. But she went much further than that. And she went into this really unexplored area of the law in terms of executive privilege. Executive privilege rests with the current executive. That's, for anyone who didn't know, that's Joe Biden. So he's the one who gets to decide whether or not executive privilege would really apply in this situation. And Donald Trump had the opportunity to assert executive privilege over all of those documents he wasn't supposed to have that he turned over in January when the National Archives informed his counsel that the FBI was going to be examining those documents. And then later on, in response to a subpoena, he turned over more classified documents that he wasn't supposed to have. And then finally, on August 8th, when they finally searched it, they found all of these new materials, including 11,000 pages of government documents and hundreds of pages of classified documents that he wasn't supposed to have at his Mar-a-Lago compound. So really, a lot of this is pretty unprecedented, and it really could be important who they end up appointing as this special master, because they're going to have some really complicated issues, and it's not a job that many folks are going to want because they're obviously going to come under attack from Trump in the future.
Danny, let's bring you in here and tell us, so what does this ruling mean for the government's investigation? Is it likely we could see an appeal?
It means delay. It means the government is going to be halted, at least for the time being, in reviewing documents. Might we see an appeal? On the one hand, maybe. If the Trump team had lost, I guarantee they'd be appealing. That is their MO. That is their strategy. They appeal as far as they can, all the way up to the Supreme Court. But the government is in a slightly different position. They have to assess whether or not it is worth their while to appeal and potentially delay this even further. Can the government live with this existing delay? Given that the government has already reviewed most of these documents. Yes, they gave some of them to a filter team, but the filter team is staffed by the government. So they've already reviewed all the documents. They can probably live with the delay. I'd be surprised to see if they appeal this.
So, Ryan, I mean, the judge specifically mentioned this ruling won't stop the intelligence community's ongoing assessment of whether those classified documents harmed national security. The FBI and Justice Department are, of course, part of the intelligence community. Help us understand who can review these materials and maybe how those parallel probes overlap.
Joe, it's a really good question, and I'm not sure it's one that the judge, this 41-year-old Trump appointee, really considered in depth here, because this is a really unexplored area, and it really is pretty unprecedented for a judge to issue an order which essentially prevents future investigation of materials that was lawfully seized. This was all lawfully done. Another judge approved this because there was plenty of probable cause that Donald Trump continued to hold these materials at his Mar-a-Lago estate, and that was in fact true, because they showed up and they found all of these materials. So the probable cause statement that was used to get this search warrant was true, because we found out what materials were there. So we really are in pretty unprecedented territory here, and I really do think that whoever the special master is would have their job cut out for them. But as Danny said, it's a question of whether or not they're going to appeal this. Of course, if they did appeal this, they're going to be stuck with a bunch of Trump judges on that appeals court, and they stack the 11th court pretty well there as well. So Donald Trump's going to have a good go potentially there. And then if this gets to the Supreme Court, he's also got a good outlook there. Although there have been plenty of instances where the Supreme Court has ruled against him. If you want to look back to the 2020 election on all his false claims about the election, for example, there. But this is really a big question about what DOJ is going to do here, and they're facing a major decision about whether or not to appeal this.
Let's talk about who it could be then and how we're going to figure that out. So the judge gave Trump's legal team and the Department of Justice until Friday to name special master candidates. Walk us through just how that process works, and also what would that mean? What type of security clearances would that person mean, given the nature of the documents?
The answer to how the process works is good luck. The judge said these parties have to submit a joint filing. Do you know what that means? That means they have to agree. Can you imagine over the next week? Is it going to be by email? Are they going to have phone conferences? These two sides hate each other. How in the world are they going to agree on a joint filing of, here's a list of potential special masters, and we're fine with both of them? No way. The DOJ wants nothing but former judges who are former prosecutors, and the Trump team obviously wants anybody who is aligned with the Trump team in their view. That's their ideal special master. So I am fascinated. We may never know the back and forth, but they have to file something this week.
Do we know what happens if they can't even come up with one name together?
That is a possibility. Yeah. I can see them getting to Wednesday and saying, and putting in a filing, essentially, Your Honor, we give up. Yeah. We just can't seem to agree on a list. I expect they'll come to an agreement, but I hold out hope that we'll see that filing, because that would be really interesting.
All right, Danny.
Okay, so literally and figuratively, you can't make this up. That not only, keep in mind, the raid on Mar-a-Lago was simply fulfilling out a search for top secret documents that the former failure-in-chief was not supposed to have, that he thought he could have, because he thought, as president, he can declassify documents, which he can't. He was asked multiple times to give it back. He didn't. So it involved the AG Merrick Garland. It involved the FBI director, who Trump appointed. It involved the governor of Florida, who had to be notified, and the Secret Service that was protecting Trump. And even the lawyer for Trump himself all knew that the FBI was going to come and search Mar-a-Lago for said documents. What does Trump do? Trump and his legal team have figured out, hey, here's how we can stop them from finding out of all the top secret documents that you got caught red-handed with, and to make sure that you don't violate make sure that they don't come across enough evidence to use the Espionage Act against you. Let's go ahead and do a request for a special master, which means the individual has to come in and review said documents that Trump has. Keep in mind, this is nothing more than delayed litigation tactics. As the journalist sat there and said, both sides have to agree on a list of people who are special masters. Even more so, the person who granted Trump this request, of course, is in Florida. And of course, appointed by Trump when he was failure-in-chief. Does anyone not see the conflict of interest here? That only in Florida can Trump still get away with things, at the same time delaying the inevitable. He is. I mean, it's amazing that who knew that of all things, documents would be the one thing that'll finally do in the failure in chief. Who knew that having top secret documents that you're not supposed to have because he went from president to private citizen? And again, it is amazing to me the level of defense that his people and his cult are coming to him on. Well, he's the president. He can declassify documents. No, he can't. There's a reason why one individual alone cannot declassify documents. It goes through a process. Have you ever seen a declassified document? That thing has more black lines than a hardwood court than a basketball hardwood court. It really does. Has more black lines going through it because a lot of that information you are not allowed to read unless you have state clearance. Same way with the Mueller investigation. Same thing with Mueller investigation. I mean, William Hart took care of that. Trump's former Attorney General, William Barr, took care of that because he redacted close to almost 80% of the Mueller report. And even then, all the redactions all said the same thing. The president had to have interfered with the election. So it's going to be interesting to see what they come up with since they have until Friday, which is a couple of days from now, to see if this list of special masters can be submitted. But again, this is Trump and his legal team, which again, I keep on saying, if you're a lawyer for Trump, it is Christmas for all the billable hours you can pay. Just good luck trying to get paid. From what I understand, Trump's a little skimpy when it comes down to actually paying his invoices. But moving right along, guys, I did want to cover this story as well because, again, this is why I sit there and say people always talk about certain colleges, things of that nature. I say the same thing about certain Christian schools about indoctrination and that you're really trying, especially with some people, they try to sit there and say, well, LGBTQ is indoctrination. We should be talking about that in schools. Well, how about colleges? Because some colleges are deciding that they don't want to talk about that, nor do they want to acknowledge it exists. I am talking about BYU. BYU, for all those that don't know, that is owned by the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints. That university has removed LGBTQ plus resource pamphlets from its welcome bags for new students. I can only wonder why. Keep in mind, BYU is a religious campus, is a religious school, and the simple fact of the matter is they don't really keep or discriminate, but at the same time, you're a new student on campus. You're a freshman. You should be given you should know all about the services, amenities that you yourself pay for because you decided to take on higher education. Imagine if you're an LGBTQ plus student and you don't know about half the things that are happening on that campus, simply put, because they decided not to tell you. It's amazing. That's why I said it's amazing to me where it comes this whole thing of just how can universities get away with this? I mean, you can argue schools up and down. You really could. You can argue schools up and down. How is a university able to get away with this? How is a university able to sit there and say, oh, well, we can't discriminate against you, but we don't really have to talk about the things that we offer here on campus or things that may be offered here by students on campus. We don't got to do that. But imagine you're paying tuition to go to a school that won't even acknowledge your preference, your pronouns, and your gender. Kind of fucked up, don't you think? But it's BYU. And the one thing I've always said about these schools that have a religious indentation or religious indentation, like Notre Dame, for example, completely Catholic, BYU, Notre Dame, and a list of other schools all fit those same parameters. But it's amazing to me for religions that talk about love and acceptance that when it comes to same sex and transgender and binary and non-binary, they're kind of deaf and blind. Kind of interesting. Moving right along, guys, again, I keep saying the job shortage doesn't affect just teachers. It affects pilots, too. Even more so that some small field commercial airfields will become less and less crowded. Why? Lack of pilots is leading to the fact that certain airfields will no longer be used. Again, the only way this gets fixed, pay the people.
This is one of the final commercial flights into Dubuque, Iowa.
We love having the airport right here in Dubuque.
But starting September 7th, that's all going to change. American Airlines will be pulling its regional service after 35 years. I was on one of their last trips.
I'm now boarding one of the 2 flights that go to Dubuque every day from Chicago. Hi there.
American calling the cuts a response to regional pilot shortages. Dubuque is home to just 60,000 people, but the area boasts 8 colleges, large businesses, and the iconic Field of Dreams. The reduction of these routes not just impacting the communities they serve, but also leading to less economic activity, fewer business travelers and tourists going back into major cities.
Who would you go visit on an airplane?
Jennifer Montgomery is losing her 5-minute drive to the airport, a luxury she fears will mean fewer visits to her sister in California.
It's not going to be as easy to take my kids there and go to Disneyland or Disney World. It's a whole extra day of travel.
Beyond Dubuque, American is ending service in and out of Toledo, Ithaca, and Islip. And they're not the only ones cutting back. Since the start of the pandemic, United Airlines has pulled out of about 20 cities. Delta dropped 3.
We are on track to see this problem worsen.
In the last 3 years, more than 300 airports have seen air service reductions, according to the Regional Airline Association.
Does that also have an impact on driving up the cost of the ticket?
It not only can increase the fare, but it also can increase the cost for the passenger.
September 6th is going to be our last flight.
Dubuque is now building a national coalition with other small cities to restore the loss of air service.
This is anything but an idle town. We've seen people coming in with more housing, with more businesses.
The nonprofit arm of the city's Q Casino donated $125,000 to support the effort.
How can we go to the moon and we can't get to Chicago?
You sound fairly confident that service will eventually come back.
We will. A community of this size, if you've got Major League Baseball playing in a county, you will find a way to have airline service.
Small communities now stranded, hoping this flight cancellation is reversed. Shaquille Brewster.
Wow. It's almost as if we had a high-speed transcontinental roadway, we wouldn't have this problem. I've been saying that. I'm sorry, I've been saying that. Aside from pilots and, pilot burnout and pilots aren't actually getting paid, it's right up there with educators. It's right up there with almost every employment sector. You have burned out individuals, not enough pay. At the same time, they're either retiring, quitting, or finding other professions. Airlines are no different. You could have all the stewardess in the air, and God bless you, stewardess, for what y'all deal with up in the air. Same with pilots. You're going to have a hard time trying to get pilots to sit there and still fly the friendly skies. And I've been saying this. This is the one thing that's always bothered me, that with the U.S. You think, for the simple fact of the matter is, by now in 2022, I should be able to hop on a bullet train here in Tennessee and be able to get to Los Angeles, California in a matter of hours. Just saying, I should be able to. It is amazing to me that with all our airline system, if you will, why don't we have an alternative to flying? Because I would think if you had a high-speed rail system that got you from coast to coast in the U.S. or got you to most major cities in the U.S., it would be a humongous release of stress off our airline travel. Think about that. Airline travel, if there was a high-speed rail system in the U.S., mostly for most air travel, would probably be out the country. If you can get to certain areas, certain major cities from most locations, air travel would probably be, it would still be used. There are still going to be, you could have, if you haven't seen it from other countries have alternative forms of travel, but they still have flying, but they're thriving versus us, where unless you decide to drive 8, 9, 10 hours in a car, which is fine, but it's amazing that in the US we still do not have a high-speed rail system that would alleviate the stress of actual traveling, especially for guys like me, because I hate flying. I am a terrible flyer. I do not like being up in the air. I will gladly hop on a bullet train with no issue. But again, it's just amazing to me that we have all these issues, and yet Democrats, I'm looking at y'all because you guys are going to make me nervous come November. Yes, the Republicans may have handed you a whole bunch of women voters and minorities. But the simple fact of the matter is they sat there and said, F Roe versus Wade, and told women, you are the red-lettered women in The Handmaid's Tale. You are the red robe women. That's what you are. And granted, they turned around that they did that, but it doesn't mean anything. Yes, Biden may have, delivered on his promise of student relief. Still not enough. If Democrats are somehow able to retain some kind of control, if I were them, it's time to get progressive. It's time to move forward with infrastructure. It's time to move forward with, minimum wage increases. It's time to move forward with actually putting down the bones to actually get us a trans rail system. It's time to modernize. It's time to be progressive. It's that simple. That's all I'm saying. Even more so that even California, which again, this is my last word for you to our feel good segment. California figured this out because again, with California guys, they figured out that, hey, the only way we're going to actually get fast food workers for what they need is to create, and again, I'm not in love with the idea, but it's a start. What I mean by that is Governor Newsom in California signed a measure that creates a 10-member fast food council that is empowered to set minimum standards for wages, hours, and working conditions in California, which is kind of a way of sitting there saying we're creating an overall union for all fast food companies and service industry to fall on. And I'm not mad about this. For all, again, this law is actually going to have a fast food council with equal number of workers and workers delegates, employees representatives, to state officials that are going to be empowered to actually do just that. Now, I admit it is a start because for me, the easiest thing would have been the easiest thing to do was actually knock up the minimum wage. Knock up the minimum wage because it's federal. Everybody has to follow it. If the minimum wage was at least 24 to 25, even on a good day, $26 an hour, the cost of living would not shift as much. Oh, well, we pay people $26 an hour, food's going to go up. If you haven't noticed, minimum wage is $7.29. Food's only gone up by about 10 or 20 cents. Well, fast food, that is. Groceries, everything else, up. Why? Because of supply. So miss me with the minimum wage increases are going to cause more prices BS, because minimum wage hasn't changed since 2007, and things at the grocery store have at least jumped anywhere from $7 to $8 more. So miss me with that. But again, I do dig the fact of what California's trying to do. I still think that it can do a lot of great work, but we'll see. I mean, like I said, just like I said about Joe Biden's student loan debt relief plan, it's a start. Do I think it can be better? Obviously, we can forgive the whole debt. But again, it's a start. And again, we have to see what happens past November. Because like I said, Democrats may retain control. They may not. We'll soon see. But moving on to our feel-good segment, guys, because usually around the Frack we got here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom, sometimes make use of faith in humanity. But hey, it's Wednesday, hump day. Tomorrow's Friday, which is Thursday. And we want to definitely leave you out with some good vibes. And I hope this story will do just that, of a person who started out their life in the ICU and now coming back to the hospital as a nurse where they first came from. Kind of a full circle kind of story. Check it out.
Hey, sister.
Hi.
How are you?
East Tennessee Children's Hospital hits close to home for nurse Hannah Lawson.
You look good.
Especially when she checks in on young patients like Parker Cross. Nearly 15 years ago, Hannah was a patient too.
They did a CT and MRI and found a brain tumor that was cancerous.
The NBC affiliate in Knoxville captured part of Hannah's journey, which began when her beloved Schnoodle sensed something was wrong.
All I remember was really Frenchie pawing at my pillow.
Then came the seizures. Days later, doctors would remove Hannah's tumor. And through her recovery, she found a calling, helping other kids with cancer. The work didn't end there. Hannah recently graduated with a nursing degree, returning to work at the very hospital that helped save her life. Her own scars.
I'm permanently bald on my right side from radiation.
A remedy for healing when connecting with patients.
I got to flip my hair over and show her, like, this is what it's going to look like, and that's going to be okay.
Child life specialist Anna Taylor helped the 7-year-old Hannah through some tough times, now reunited as colleagues.
She always had a positive outlook on everything. What's the message that you have for kids, adults who are fighting cancer right now?
See the good It's really hard to see the good, but I think that's what gets you through it.
Cancer-free and thriving. Today, the compassionate care Hannah knows so well is coming full circle. Kathy Park, NBC News.
And again, I just thought that was cool. How to come full circle that you start out the NCIU of the hospital only to come back and now be a nurse and help other people. Again, I thought that was pretty cool. But that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. I do thank you for watching, for liking, for sharing, for letting people know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. You can always find me, BlackFox447, on all socials. Definitely like and follow me there, guys, as I usually do post a lot of things that I review and some gym stuff because I do call push-ups. Of course, the tracker that you see at the bottom, guys, I'll just go ahead and make that just a wee bit bigger. If you copy and paste that into your browser, we'll take you to my link tree that has the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts, How the Frack Got Here, Get Bit, and of course, the Optimus Podcast. Definitely like, share, and subscribe to all of those. That'd be so certainly appreciated. Not mostly appreciated. That was good and terrible. It's always appreciated. But also, check out my boy, Avon Westman on Facebook, Big BZ on socials. Definitely check him out as he definitely has discovered TikTok and he has his What Is Big BZ Thinking moments. Definitely funny, but definitely check him a shout, like and share from there. And aside from that, guys, like I usually say, we're all about positivity here. You know, reach out to people that you care about. Check on them. Say hi, especially brothers. If you see a brother out in public, what's up? How you doing? Check on them, because each of us are fighting a battle that nobody knows about. And just by checking on somebody, saying hi, or just being kind, you might do more than just, brighten up their day a little bit. You might actually save a life in the process. So certainly do just that, because it takes zero energy to be nice. It takes everything in you to be a dick. So don't be a dick, simply put. Also, at the same time, guys, COVID is still out there, and it's many other variants, almost like a King Dynasty thing, really. If you're going to be out in the crowd with a lot of foot traffic, please wear a mask. Please protect yourself and others, because that's the only way we're going to get past this pandemic, because I know it has been said in a while, but yes, we are in a pandemic. Definitely protect yourself so you can protect others, so we can all look forward to a longer, happy life. That's all I'm saying. That being said, guys, last thing I'll say about How the Frack Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information, allowing you to make up your own mind for yourself. But we do provide a lot of perspective that goes along with it. We do better as a society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, like electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black 4-star general. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go up by our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians, but still the same old story? And most importantly, how the Frack got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll all get through this.